Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. So in today's video guys, I would like to talk about remote work. It's the topic that has become very popular, especially for the last 4 years, and I guess primarily since 2020. And since, as I said earlier in one of my previous video, I'd been working in the financial field. I'd been working in one of the largest banks in Russia as a trader, and of course I'd been practicing this type of work for some time, for 4 years to be clear, since 2010 up until the end of 2024. What I've also noticed is that this topic, like remote work, not working from office, etc., has become, as I've said, extremely popular. People are discussing, what's the main point of working remotely, what are benefits, some downsides, etc. And of course, I've seen so many people on YouTube discussing this topic, expressing their point of views, either talking against or in favor of this movement. In today's video, as I've said, I would like to express my opinion. I would like to say some of my perspectives about, let's say, the way how I see remote jobs, working remotely, etc. on the whole, in general, what it looks like, what, in my opinion, I would say the key point of working remotely. Because right now, looking back to 2020, and of course, to be more precise, it was February and March 2020, when actually no one had never worked remotely before, and no one actually had no idea how to work remotely. People, like everyone, my colleagues, people I knew, were just dreaming about working remotely. And when, the COVID 2019 happened and all that outbreak of COVID occurred, people were actually forced to go home to continue working outside their offices. This is actually when it all started. Since that time, people started working remotely from time to time, depending on a particular season. I remember, there were several chapters, let's call them this way, when people were forced to go back to office, then, again, go to home, was continuing up until maybe, I would say the middle of 2022, 2023, something like that, when finally, all the restrictions, they were terminated in terms of wearing masks, in terms of working, let's say, this as a rule, working remotely. Yeah, all these things, they were terminated. Since then, people became separated into two main categories, in which the first group of people, they continued working either part-time or fully remotely, whereas other group of people, they were forced to go back to office as a full-time, for example, which means that you would have to work 9-to-5 job from office again the way it had been before 2020. To be completely honest and clear, it was the time when all people's perception and view and I would say general understanding of how effectively you can work has been shifted tremendously, I would say, because right now it's become more difficult to meet some people who are looking for a new job, their expectations. Because right now in each resume, in each CV, you can see that people want to work remotely. And it just didn't happen out of nowhere, because people actually tried this. And of course, most of them found this pretty, not lucrative, but I would say pretty convenient. You don't have to commute. You don't have to see some people and interact with some people personally who you actually don't like. It's just a minor part of what you can potentially get from this option. And first I want to break down my first experience. As I said, it started in 2020, and of course, as most people, I had never ever before 2020 worked remotely. And for me, of course, it was really an undescribable experience. I was, how old I was, 23, 22, 23. And for me, I was like, holy crap, I can do the same work actually sitting at my home without having to go somewhere and maybe just looking at some people who I may potentially don't like, or just, using the subway stations, be actually revolved around all this public transportation and stuff. Yeah, so that was it. I wouldn't have to do this stuff anymore. I guess it's too sunny here. And as I've said, I'd never done this before. For me, it was really undescribable experience, because I just couldn't even believe myself. As probably most people, I first allocated this free time towards increasing my leisure time because, I guess all people who have this option for the first time, they try to, I would say, expand and maybe, expand their free time. Actually, I was able to have a rest more, to read some books, to watch some movies, to do something, not in terms of course, doing some projects and making more money. No, I usually call it like first chapter of any person who starts working remotely as expenditure of your leisure time. When you, start sleeping more, eating more, you can just go to the gym in the middle of the day. Of course, depending on the work you do, but in general, you can do this stuff, which we are going to cover a little bit later in this video. Let me take a look at some bullet points. Essentially, it was my first experience, as I said, and right now, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons of working remotely, because in my opinion, it's been the most controversial topic, remote work. There have been lots of people discussing negative and positive things, I would say talking against or in favor working remotely. What I've understood, the way I see it, is that of course, when it comes to working remotely, it has its own pros and cons, and let's first quickly take a look at some benefits which you may procure from being given this option, either working full-time remotely or at least have flexible schedule, which means that you may work remotely 3 or 4 days. Of course, the first one, which all people first encounter, you start having more free time. But what I say from my perspective, it shouldn't be something that you are going to use and implement for the rest of your remote career. Because of course, for the first maybe weeks, maybe for the first 2 months, it's okay. You just, you are kind of like indulge. You are given this option and you actually have no idea how to use this, how to manage this. Yeah, you can use this, just let yourself have some rest. But then, in my opinion, the way people have to use this option of working remotely as doing something as your side hustle. And actually, this is what I was doing. Since 2021, I'd been working on my projects, some businesses, some side hustles. I was just trying one thing and another in order to generate some source of income outside my job. I think in general, this is the main way how I see working remotely in terms of having some benefits. Because if you have this option, if you can work remotely, it means that you do have to use this time effectively, either for potential source of income, maybe for your family, but it definitely should be something that you are going to get some benefits from, either side hustle or maybe some business. In some extreme cases, I would also tell you that it may be some like second job or even third job. I knew some people selling their hours for different companies at the same time. Of course, it depends on the job you should do, but in general, you can do this. But you got to be very careful. You need to know some nuances of your company, your work day, and your schedule. But once you get used to your job, you can start trying this, but again, be careful. And of course, since we've covered some pros, let's discuss some cons, some drawbacks of working remotely. One of the biggest is them kind of stems from benefits, because as I've mentioned, you start having more free time. It's a pretty much double-edged sword. For people who are not capable of managing their time, it's like a poison. Because if you're given more free time, you will be just use this time like, lying on the sofa, just going out, using this time pretty much ineffectively, not just for the sake of improving yourself as a human being. I don't know, reading books, watching some podcasts, learning languages, learning some skills, for example, maybe some computer languages, whatever, any skills which you actually can learn while sitting at home. To be honest, I've seen, I would say, really lots of people who are using their time from remote work, I would say, in my opinion, pretty much ineffectively. I've really seen lots of people using their free time, which they got from remote work, extremely ineffectively. I mean, absolutely. it was like, sleeping up until 11 a.m. instead of just waking up at 8 a.m. It's like, drinking something, doing some stuff, watching TV. Of course, in this case, what I always say and what I strongly advocate for, it's not for you. You have to just go back to office and work from this place, because I wouldn't say, it's just for some exceptional people, but again, for people who are not capable of managing their schedule, managing some organization stuff, who are not self-organized, not self-disciplined, and all these qualities, it's going to be more a curse than a blessing. And right now, I want to talk a little bit about some issues and some arguments, especially in relation to some people who are saying that it's unfair for someone else to work remotely, whereas some people are actually not able to work remotely. For example, let me put this way. Some time ago, I watched a podcast, or it was like interview with Elon Musk. He was strongly advocating for the idea that it's not fair at all for someone else to work remotely, whereas there are some construction workers out there, there are some people working in the factories. And since then, I've seen that there are different kinds of arguments. If we are going to dive deeply into this matter, into this problem, on the one hand, it seems to be unfair. You're like, banker, or you're some sales manager or whatever, you actually can work remotely if you don't interact with clients. But for some people working in restaurants, working in some factories, businesses and stuff, where you need to be, let's say, to be at your work, it seems to be unfair. But again, in my opinion, it depends from which angle you're going to look at this problem. Because this way, of course, it's unfair. And all people actually have to go back to office and work from there, because once again, according to Elon Musk, it's unfair. It's a pretty debatable topic. Even right now, I'm just rambling my thoughts and cannot even. It's really difficult to get my message across. But the point is that, of course, with the same logic, we can say about some different kind of profession. If you're like a construction worker and you work for some misery salary, but at the same time, you can be like some people like CEO, having tremendous amount of money, huge salary, but essentially doing nothing. Of course, in this case, it just comes down to the amount of responsibility which you have on your shoulders. But I was just trying to, let's say, outline, some similarities with the same logic. I wouldn't say I completely agree with Elon Musk. I can say it from the perspective that since then, there've been some companies who are strongly advocate for working from office, even though it makes absolutely no sense. Because in my opinion, if you have a computer, if you have like your phone, have all this equipment, it doesn't actually matter where you work from. Of course, some people, some of the people, they work less effectively, some people work more effectively, but on average, in general, if you have a computer, if you have this, let's say, digital things, you don't interact with people personally, you are not, a nurse or teacher in kindergarten or school, and you actually don't need to be, let's say, here as a human being. You don't have to exist here in this place. From my perspective, logically, there are no reasons for you to work from office. But in reality, it depends on the particular company. What I tell you is that the bigger company is, the less likely you will be allowed to work remotely. And it doesn't happen out of nowhere. There are some reasons. There is a premise for this. Because if you have thousands of employees, even if some of them really work effectively from home, it's really difficult and it requires lots of expenses and money, because you need to have some equipment, in order to monitor and to survey how effectively your people work and your staff work. But in general, it comes down to making sure whether people have the same level of effectiveness or not. Because even if you say, no, I work, by the same efficiency, just what's the point of me? No, there are thousands of people, employees in a company, and you're as an individual trying to establish your own rules. In most cases, in the majority of cases, it's not gonna work. You will probably have to leave this company and find, some other company, maybe some startup or some small company in which it's possible to negotiate for the small things. Or you will have to just stay in this company and just obey and be pretty much obedient with these rules, comply with these rules. That's the way it is. That's how it works. Because unlike big companies and big corporations. In small companies, it's a way easier to negotiate this stuff, whether you will be allowed to work remotely or not, because I don't know, you can show just some reports or some results of your work, which may prove that really there is no difference. You can work from home as effectively as from office. In order to wrap up this video, maybe once again, I want to say that if you have this opportunity in your company, whether as a flexible schedule, maybe 3 days from office and 2 days remotely, or you're so lucky that you have an option to work fully remotely 5 days a week, what I would tell you again is that use this time, surplus of free time, as effectively as possible. I'm not talking about, let's say, working every single second, but again, if you even have extra 1 or 2 hours, you cannot even imagine how great this option is in order to build some side hustle, in order to start YouTube channel, in order to learn some skills while doing your job. In most jobs, in most companies, of course, people don't work 8 hours straight. Once again, depends on a particular company, but in general, at least maybe 2 or 3 hours, people usually don't work. That's why if you're at home, you can really use this time even for working for another company. But, I guess in today's video, I'm not going to be talking about this. Just keep in mind that it's possible. I guess that will do for today's video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe on this channel and give me a thumbs up. And see you guys in our next video. Bye.